All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the That's Not Real Trek Watch Party podcast. This is episode number 14. My name is Scotty, also known as EVC. Directly below me, the lovely Short and Sweet. Both of them all together, also known as Veronica. And she is here to entertain and make licorice and show you immediately out the door or something along those lines. Who knows? How are you this evening?
I am hanging in there. How are you?
Hanging in there. I am also hanging, but I don't know where I am hanging. It's a mystery. All right. So we lost. Spoilers. Do not listen to the next sentence if you have not seen this yet. But spoilers. We lost Lieutenant Arium last week. Oh, disappointing. Did you have it? I know you were busy this past week with work and all that, but did you have any further thoughts on the passing of the dear Lieutenant to Mechanical Arium?
I think that they kind of missed a little bit of an opportunity. They could have developed her a little more before we lost her. But it is what it is. They, went for the shock factor, and that's what we got.
Yeah. And I also, well, on that, along those same lines, I think that it seems like they're trying to cram so much storyline into every episode. Uh, they're all pretty much very jam-packed, action-oriented, emotion-oriented, and all of that. We don't necessarily have the kind of time to explore characters at least it seems that way. In TNG, you had whole episodes sometimes that were devoted to character development and wasn't necessarily an action thing. Um, so maybe that in and of itself is starting to feels like it's kind of rushing the character development stories that are there. Oh, yeah. Cat said, "Fuck you."
He hates being held.
Uh, all right. So what we're looking at this week, we're continuing with season 2 of Discovery. And now that they answered some of those questions as to what was going on, we didn't know anything whatsoever, and now we know at least half of what's going on. Now they're going to start building with the next. It's 5 episodes left to the end of this story arc where we find out what all is going on with the Red Angel and what it means and how the crew of Discovery is coping with all of that. So first episode is season 2, episode 10, The Red Angel, and then after that we'll have episode 11, Perpetual Infinity. So here we go. Dun dun.
I almost called that. I like towards the end. I was like, I bet it's her mom.
Yeah, they tried to play it off as it was her, and when I first saw that, first time I watched the series, I thought, well, that looks a lot like Burnham but old. Maybe it's like a version of her from the future or something.
Mhm.
Until she goes mom, and it's just like, what?
She never died at all.
Yes, and we will get some more details on that later. But so that has essentially answered some major questions about the Red Angel. First, primarily, and to me more shocking than it being Burnham or Burnham's mom, is that Section 31 is behind all of this. That was their suit design. It was
Yeah.
Captain Leland who was having Burnham's parents build this and develop it and et cetera, procuring a time crystal from not so on the up and up means, and that's ultimately what apparently killed Burnham's parents. Was they traced it. Um, but yeah, all of this we found out is because of the Red Angel being a suit designed by Section 31 as part of their Project A Dallas program. And yeah, so it's essentially been Section 31's fault the entire time, not Burnham's.
Hmm.
And yeah, so what do you make of all that?
I thought it was kind of interesting. It went in a direction I wasn't expecting. I'm not sure how Arium knows about it, and I don't know if they'll like detail that more. Um,
Um, the best
or
I
was it part of the download?
Yeah, the best I could tell, that was like part of the information that she got from being infected,
Okay.
or at least some of the information that was found out from either Discovery's computer or the Sphere data or whatever, that then she had come across while being infected, and at least knew the name of it, and that it involved all this. But
Sure.
it seems to me like Arium didn't know that until the last minute,
Hmm.
and she was only then able to provide that information that gave them a lead. Um, but yeah, the old Star Trek trope of let's find the most wild plan of action we can and hope like hell it's gonna work.
Right.
Uh, we've seen that I don't know how many times in Star Trek history, but usually it's just essentially the fault of the writers, and the writers are saying, okay, how do we actually resolve this conflict that we started? Um, I almost think of like the original Star Trek episode where they encounter a god, Trelon, and
Hmm.
the only resolution to that was Trelon's parents showing up and dragging him out by the ears. Um, so, obviously there's all sorts of plot devices that are going to resolve a conflict in a storyline, but Star Trek, especially seeing as how it's got well over 800 television series episodes and movies now, has had definitely its share of conflicts that it's like, this seems just a little bit far fetched here,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
What?
like Michael knows best, and now we're gonna double down, and Michael knows best, and if we get this wrong, then everyone's gonna die.
Right, right. And if Michael dies, everybody dies, or if Michael doesn't die, maybe everybody still dies. We don't know, but it's our best shot, you know.
Yeah, the only
Um,
way.
yeah. All right. So, is that starting to make sense now? At least, are the pieces falling in place for you with this Red
Yeah,
Angel and what it's there for? Um,
yeah. It's
they
getting pretty
surmised
cool.
they surmised basically that Burnham, if it was Burnham in the suit, a future version of her or something else, that that person operating it in that timeline wasn't going to let her die.
Mm.
So that was the trap that was set. So and it proved they were correct, but there's probably a lot of elements of that they weren't planning on and didn't foresee. Um, the twists and turns of the plot as they're just trying to figure out this mystery.
Yeah,
Um, and then of course we have the secondary plot lines of Leland being scrutinized by Saru. That was kind of brief, as was the therapeutic help that Admiral Cornwell was giving the Dear Doctor. Um, it seems like she easily slips back into that therapist role. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he walked in. Do you have a minute? Oh, sure. Sit down. Let's talk about your feelings.
Right.
Um, Especially also considering maybe some of the emotional heartache she went through losing Lorca, or thinking that was her Lorca and it wasn't,
Hmm.
and everything that happened with that. So I just find it interesting that in the midst of everything, we still find a little bit of time to talk about our feelings and really hash it out.
Of
In part,
course, you gotta have the
yeah.
melodrama.
In particular, the scene with Giorgio in the engine room with Stamets and Culber and Tilly, and Tilly basically summing that up with "What just happened," you know. Um, and I thought that was an interesting way for the writers to include. Um, I don't want to say like bits and pieces, but like a little. I hear so often from Christian conservatives how much they hate gay and LGBT storylines written into modern television and movies because they feel it's being shoved down their throats. I thought this was a very well done, nuanced way in that scene of talking about alternative sexualities without anyone feeling that that's how it was portrayed, not being shoved down your throat. She was, kind of like in a roundabout way, just describing what things were like in her universe.
Hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on all of that?
That whole scene, kind of like the audio is kind of muffin up for me a little bit,
Oh, okay.
so I just caught bits and pieces. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a nice subtle way, and it's just a little breadcrumbs here and there, and it's
And it's
good.
not in
Good
your
stuff.
face either.
Yeah.
It's almost like Giorgio as a Terran is coming from a universe where the whole universe is essentially a red light district, and you know
Mhm.
that kind of stuff is not taboo over there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting way to portray that, and I thought it did it justice too. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. Did you have any other thoughts on that episode?
I like that they leave the AI dormant because obviously I think we're going to revisit that. So they just briefly are like, oh, yeah, Arium's gone, the control is, destroyed, but it's still out there. We'll
Still out
we'll
there.
loop around to it.
Yeah, and did you catch that scene with Leland at the end? I know you did. I just,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
gets a little eye surgery there
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
end.
gross. I was like, oh, suffocating's a terrible way to die, and then then that happens. I'm
Right.
like, oh, I think that might be worse.
Might just be a little, what was that old saying? Stick a needle in your eye, hope to die, or something like
Hope to die, stick, yeah.
that.
Cross your fingers, hope to die.
But if you caught it, the computer seemed to be stuttering
Mm-hmm.
as that was happening.
Yeah.
And then the immediate next scene was Leland telling Tyler on the bridge, "You've got the power you need. Go ahead." So, something going on
Interesting.
there.
We'll see. Yeah, something's up.
Watch your P's and Q's, mister.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's and it seems like now we're kind of like on a downward trend with this story arc towards the end. We've got now four more episodes.
Hmm.
And to me, I also think that this kind of follows suit a little bit with the first season, where the main conflict is resolved one or two episodes before the actual end of the season. Um, and yes, they're going to deal with the Red Angel and the AI and the sphere data, and now also this thing that has occurred to Leland. But there's also more afoot that has
Mm.
yet to be fully developed. So just keep that in mind as we move on. All right, the next one then is episode 11, Perpetual Infinity. Here we go. The game is afoot. Board is
Mm.
yours, Michael. What the fuck are you gonna do?
Probably lose again.
Probably cry. Probably try to save the universe from. Yeah, Burnham is kind of a convoluted character, and she most definitely gets it from her mom. It's like
Yeah.
the
Oh,
it's like this savior complex or something.
yeah.
Which I mean, I get it from maybe her mom's perspective. You got the suit. You're stuck 900 plus years in the future, and you keep coming back to try to alter the timeline to save the universe, and you have nothing else to do with your time but twiddle your thumbs. That maybe I could see, but it's
Right.
it's very very indicative of what uh where Burnham got it from. Even as a child, that's what her mom was like.
Mm.
So all right, so what'd you think of the revelations in this episode?
Pretty good. I think it's getting a little convoluted. At one point, I couldn't keep up whether or not Giorgio was working with Section 31 in Leland or against Section 31 in Leland, and then you don't know if who Tyler's working with. But I guess in the end, it all kind of came out. So
Yeah, Giorgio is always working for Giorgio.
for Giorgio.
So if that means 1 minute her alliances are with Section 31, the next it's with Burnham, next it's with Dr. Culber Poppy trying to get somebody in bed. That's where she goes. Um, yeah, and I mean the story arc that they've been developing on Discovery last season was convoluted enough. This one's even more so. It seems like a very specific style of storytelling where they're trying to cram as much as possible in there. And yeah, it
Mm.
keeps you guessing, but you can also get lost in the weeds too.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
were
too many
discussing
misdirect.
like we were discussing in the chat that there's actually basically two different AIs that we're talking about here. There's the the sphere data, which seems to, at least the way it's been presented, act as like a library that is designed to protect itself from everything. That was downloaded to Discovery's computer. It kind of like incorporated itself into Discovery's computer. And in this episode, when they tried to delete it wouldn't allow itself to be deleted from the computer. Um, then we have the AI that is what has now taken over Leland, and and that is when they sent the probe into the time portal, and it went into the future and came back all Borgified, and then downloaded itself to Lieutenant Arium and was trying to, and it had succeeded at that point to download a portion of the sphere data to Control, and then it infected Control, and that's when Arium passed away, and Then from Control, because they destroyed Control, now it has infected Leland's ship, and now Leland himself. And this is what they're trying to prevent is from this AI to get at the very least the specific portion of sphere data that deals with AI evolving in all of the historical records, because that is what leads to it evolving enough to become such a threat and destroy all of sentient life.
Become the
Um,
Borg.
so at the very least, we know that Burnham's mom is coming back from this point in the future where that has already occurred. She's trying to change the timeline in various different ways to make it so that has not occurred. But I don't know if you caught it. She also said, and it appeared that she was being truthful, Burnham's mom, that she didn't know what the red signals were.
Mm-hmm.
So we still don't have a clear answer for what that is. And even though it appeared related to the Red Angel, it at least seems somehow disconnected from what Burnham's mom has been doing all along.
Right.
Um, so there's still more story to be told on that, obviously, but um, that's the main storyline, and now we've got a good, considerable shape, I think, of what the overall story arc is supposed to be about, stopping this event from occurring where eventually this malicious AI gets a hold of the sphere data, and that eventually will then lead to destruction of all of sentient life. So as they move forward, uh, that not only is going to be their prime target, like I mean in this case now, as this episode ends and goes into the next one, now they're chasing Leland, who has been taken over, and his ship. Tyler was left behind, or ejected in the escape pod, and now it's basically an all-out effort to try to stop this threat, especially now that the suit and Burnham's mom have gone back to the future, where they met up with Michael J. Fox, and they had to try to get back to 1955. So yeah, convoluted definitely fits the bill, and I think even though they do a relatively good job of tying up all the loose ends by the end of the season, I would agree with that. That you kind of get lost in the weeds and forget some of the details that are important to remembering this or that, especially over a season. It's maybe one thing if you're binge watching it and seeing an entire season in maybe a weekend or something, but doing it once a week or doing 2 episodes a week, it kind of loses some of that's value, and maybe that's indicative of not being able to take a series like this and put it in the older format where you were doing 1 episode a week.
Yeah.
So, did you have any other thoughts on any of that?
Oh, just, she's got some serious mommy issues. The whole episode was just all the mommy issues.
Well, her mom's got some pretty big damn issues herself,
True.
just that like that last conversation they had. Oh, let's like Spock and Kirk. You are always my mom, and
Mhm.
the conversation that they're having is basically Burnham's mom saying, "I love you, but I don't love you that much." We have
The
to
needs of the many.
yeah, we have to save the universe. Um, and I think her mom is a bit of a piece of work too. Definitely. Uh, there's some kind of character qualities about her that lead me to believe she's been in the angel suit by herself for too long. Not
Yeah.
enough contact, and whatever else. But they both suffer from this savior complex, uh, and who's going to save them from themselves? We do not know. That's yet another twist and turn that we have yet to navigate here. All right. Well, we do get a few more answers sparingly here as we move on. There's now 3 more episodes, I think. Yeah. And next week, going to do Discovery season 2, episode 12, Through the Valley of Shadows. And then it ends in 2-part episodes. So episode 13 is Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1, and then episode 14 is Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2. We're not going to get to that Part 2 until the second week, when we're actually wrapping up all of this. We see how all of this resolves. So I will say this, as we've got these last 2 weeks here in Discovery Season 2, that we had mentioned before, and we talked about this a little bit in the chat, that the one thing that has kind of been overarching in this season is this relationship between Spock and Burnham, and how we've never heard of it before. And that probably has been used quite a bit by naysayers to say this is not real Trek, because the writers just kind of built this storyline in where Spock's got a sister we've never heard of, and that's very convenient and all that. And as you noted there, we've never heard of her, and that could have been explained by the fact that Spock and Burnham just weren't on good terms. In particular, Spock just didn't want to have anything to do with her after what she said to him as a child. But if they're starting to overcome and resolve that issue, since the episode where the Talosians basically fixed his mind, and now they're coming to grips with this issue from their past, and maybe he's starting to forgive her, well, that kind of throws that into a doubt that that's the reason why we've never heard of Burnham before. But there definitely is something coming here that is going to resolve that issue and several other issues by that the end of the season. And I think it really not only ties together all the loose ends, but it gives a lot of closure to the fact that if you're going to do a prequel like this, and I got to assume they're going to try to do the same type of standard with Strange New Worlds, is you've got to do your best to have it in a nice, neat package, ready to go against what has already come before that, what is happening after this in the timeline. And from what I've seen, they've done a really decent job of it. It may not be all kind of fancy and nobody's or not everybody's gonna like it either, but I think they did a decent job of that. So that's what we're going to be looking for in the next 2 weeks, for all of this to be wrapped up and explained fully. So
yeah.
All right, well, that does it then. We'll see you in 2 weeks then. Thank you very much. Adios.
Night night.